meeting of June 8th order. And we will start by standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to announce the roll? Yeah.
Roll call shows 2 supervisors absent, Supervisor Hunt and Supervisor Michael.
Okay. Move on to approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Members of the public wishing to be heard, I see we have 2. You will have 5 minutes. Carolyn Kaiser, you're up first here.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Kaiser, and I live at 2964 35th Avenue in Elkmont. I believe it's important to say a big thank you and a special shout out to the Public Health Director, the IT Department, and Flexible Department head staff in the county. They have taken many steps to get us to this point. A lesson that could be learned from the past year plus is how to grow a coalition group and work together for the greater good. As supervisors of the county board, you have a leadership role in the community. I would see it as a positive if coalition building and communication would be used in this setting. I ask that you use transparency, that you use criteria to make decisions, and that in making decisions you see how to connect the dots for the citizens as a whole. I'll share a few examples of mixed messages. On April 21st, 2021, our public health director stated the county was in severe risk stage of the pandemic. 6 days later, April 27th, a letter was written stating that voting members of the board must attend meetings or be marked absent. At the May 11th board meeting, a question was asked in regards to which parameters were used to make this April 27th decision. That was met with disdain from a peer. On May 20th, the Health and Human Services Committee met Public Health Director, encouraged people to have a photo taken, and then shared on social media to get vaccinated. Who did that? April 27th, the Public Health Director stated, we're in week 5 of a high risk, and we moved down from severe. 4 days later, on June 1st, the Executive Committee minutes reflect that a press release would be sent out stating that WebEx meetings will be canceled. The public needs to attend the meeting if they want to hear what's going on. And on June 3rd, the Oakler Leader printed a small article stating that the public would be allowed to attend meetings and stated that the public has only been able to watch meetings virtually. Why would that be in the article? I know of no meeting that was on Zoom. Yesterday, June 7th, Chippewa County, the COVID response webpage reads, risk level high. Guidelines for such are indoor, less than 30 people, outside, less than 100. And remember that social and physical distancing. In the Chippewa Valley, we have seen how different Eau Claire, Dunn, and Chippewa have handled the pandemic. We can see how the Chippewa County Courthouse has handled business and staff working in the courthouse. And a view of the PowerPoint shows the various options, giving notice, and so forth. I would ask that the board have group discussions, and that you realize we the people are individuals who should not be denied access to government meetings in the vein of control. What criteria was used to make the board attendance decisions mandatory in person? What thought went into denying public citizens who want to listen, but who are themselves medically compromised, so an in-person attendance would not be in their reality? As leaders, what actions have been instituted to quell the myths and insert the facts? What steps are being taken to attract tourism? You can see, for example, the messages that Door and Bayfield County are taking. And at what speed has the board as a whole taken to promote safety, be a good neighbor, and generally care about each other? Thank you for your time.
Okay, Dave Staber.
Good evening, Dave Staber, Town of Lafayette. Talking about the same things I did last meeting, stormwater, and the lack of response from the Land Conservation Committee to get this back on the agenda for discussion. We wouldn't even be here for this meeting, or I wouldn't have to be here, if at that meeting back in February, I believe it was, if they'd taken public input from the 4 townships that were impacted by this prior to making their vote of 3-3. That 3-3 vote ended a program that's been in place since 2007 that was approved by the county board back then. A good program, not a free program for the townships. The township paid their way on this entire program and will continue to pay our way on this program. So what I'm asking is you put this back on a county board agenda, have discussion about it, and get some action on this thing. If you're going to turn it down as a county board, fine. But there needs to be some discussion and input from the affected parties rather than just 3-3 vote in the land commission meeting or land use commission meeting that had no input whatsoever from the affected members on it. You've got Eagle Point, Town of Halley, or the Village of Halley, Town of Lafayette, and Anson that are all impacted by this. 3 of the largest townships in the county that are being denied a service because they said they had public input or had input that they were spending too much money on those 3 townships. After the last meeting, I did a public records request asking for copies of those comments they had. Guess what? There were no comments. There was no public input on it. There was no open records request available for it because nothing was submitted. So again, I asked, get it back on the agenda and have an open and fair discussion about this. Thank you.
Okay. We will move on to the consent agenda. At this time, I would seek a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Call the administrator forward.
I can't vote first. That's okay.
If you want, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Oh, thank you. I'm here tonight because of the appointment of Russ to the Emergency Management Director position. As you can see by his bio, he comes to us with a very impressive resume, both within the county and without. He's been with the county for 25 years. So I'd ask you, though, in welcoming Russ, and ask him to come up and say a few words. I'm here now, Russ.
All right. Thank you, Randy. County Board Chairman, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to the challenge going forward. I've got quite a bit of experience with the county and within our department and the emergency services of Chippewa County. So I'm bringing that to the table here, but I have a lot to learn yet. So I'll be working hard to get up to speed on that. I couldn't ask for a better example to follow than Dennis Brown, my current boss. I've worked under him for 21 years as his direct report, and he is the consummate emergency management professional, and I have big shoes to fill with him. So thank you again. You ever have the opportunity to stop by the Sheriff's Department building where our offices are, I'd be glad to have a cup of coffee with you and get to know you. And you can come out and lend a hand or just do a ride along, putting a fire number in here and there. So it could be a good opportunity too. So thank you for your time.
Okay, reports. Human Services, Tim?
Good evening, everybody. As I've been talking about the last couple of years, out-of-home placements have been the driver of our budget challenges. They're our most vulnerable citizens, both children and adults, people in crisis, children in danger, sometimes adults as well. We are mandated by the state to serve these folks. While we've been on an upward trend, the last year has seen increased need. Folks tend to go to what they know in challenging times. Sadly, though, a lot of it's increased alcohol use, drug use, self-harming. That's when we end up getting involved. This brings all the multitude of other issues, children's safety and folks who are in danger to themselves, others, or both. So what we've got here is the managers of each respective division are going to present. Tom Deal is going to be first, talking about adults. Kyra Seacrow will be next, talking about youth, YGA, mental health placements. And Ashley Broad, who's standing in for Carrie Kerber, who's on a well-deserved vacation this week, our CPS manager, will be talking about the out-of-home placements for Child Protective Services. Palmer?
Forward and back. Left to right, forward and back.
Hi, thank you for your time, and I'll make this real short and fast for you guys. So people enter into the mental health system because we're required by Chapter 51 regulation to provide treatment services to people with mental health, substance abuse, and developmental disabilities. The important factor here is that we're required to treat them in the least restrictive manner possible. That means whether it's in a hospital setting, group home, or even independently in their apartment. DHS 5115 is about emergency mental health detentions. And this is when someone presents as a risk to safety to themselves or to others, and they are involuntarily placed into a hospital setting. At that point, the hospital setting can be an acute facility locally, and unfortunately, sometimes it ends up being the state hospital Winnebago, which is referred to as an IMD, an Institute of Mental Disease. So those placements take place. If a person is found to be mentally ill and a danger and they're placed on a mental health commitment that lasts for 6 months, at that time, 2 evaluating doctors will tell us what level of care they require. And then as a county representative, we're required to follow those recommendations. Placements can be, again, in their own home, group home, or in an institute for mental disease. Group home rates range from $140 to $280 a day. Chippewa County, which is an IMD, that rate, as you can see, is $370 a day. Important factor to remember here is an IMD does not accept Medicaid as a reimbursable source for funding. And so if a person is in an IMD setting like Chippewa County, we, as the county, is responsible for the psychotropic medications, and oftentimes those could be $1,000 a month. With the Medicaid regulations, when they're in an IMD from between the ages of 21 and 65, that's where they do not qualify for Medicaid as a funding stream. Out-of-home placements, as you can see in the beginning, in 2014 on this chart, we were able to return money back to the county under the money by using good judgment and placements and such. Around 2016, we saw a jump. And we accommodated our budget by adjusting that to another 110,000, to accommodate that increase. As you can see, the increase continued. We're kind of been bottoming out at around 650 to 700,000 over the last 3 years. You'll find that 2018, 2019, a lot of our resources for placement in the community was a higher end group home, which was charging $270 a day.
The money that we ended up shifting was from other spent pots of money. It was an additional levy money.
Right. This graph basically is showing you the budget that we have had set forth over the last 6-7 years. And then the expenses that have been incurring, and you can see that it continues to go up. We don't really see any in sight at this point. This is the IMD budget that we have. As you can see, this has also skyrocketed. 2020 was a difficult year, and in part, the COVID pandemic caused where hospital beds available throughout the state were very limited. And Winnebago is mandated to accept anyone that is placed on a Chapter 51. They can't refuse placements. So as you can see, 2020, we had 87 admissions, close to $950,000 in expenses. And again, this graph here shows that, that continues to escalate, and we're, same this year is a continuing process of a number of placements in Winnebago. One of the things to keep in mind under emergency detentions that have taken place in Chippewa County, a number of them are not Chippewa County residents. They are placed in group homes by counties outside our area. And we have been working with our regional counties and with the regional office to have a kind of an agreement out there that if you place someone in our county and they're detained, they would be responsible from the date of admission. Right now, the residential statute indicates that our county, Chippewa County, be responsible for the first 3 to 5 days, depending on a weekend or a holiday. We have some good feedback from the counties. Barron, Polk, Dunn, Eau Claire are all on board, and we agree to pay for our residents whether they're detained in our county or not. But it is a voluntary agreement that we've entered with them.
And I think the thing to keep in mind is that we have probably close to over 1,000 people that access the crisis system during the year. Very small number of them have emergency detentions. The majority of people are maintained in the home on a safety plan and safely at home. So it's only a small number that receive the emergency detention. And 2020 was the anomaly, like Tom had mentioned. We don't pay for hospitals. Just about everybody has insurance or Medicaid, because it's not an IMD. An IMD is a hospital whose primary purpose is to serve those who are mentally ill. A regular hospital like Sacred Heart, which has a psych unit on it, its primary purpose is physical health and wellness. So that's why they're allowed to charge Medicaid. So that's why we always prefer that. We actually have, how long is our hospital list? If somebody's going to be emergency.
We look at 18 different hospitals that we can place throughout the state that either have contracts with us or are willing to accept Medicaid or emergency detentions from Chippewa County.
Winnebago's our last stop.
Other questions or concerns? All right, thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be talking about youth justice kids. So under statute 938, we're required to provide services for youth. The 938-01 is for those youth that are criminally charged and are delinquents. 938-13 covers our truant kids. If people are found to be incompetent, kids that commit a delinquent act before the age of 10, and those who are habitually truant from home. The big driver, besides habitually truant from school, is the uncontrollables. So that's when a parent or guardian asks the court to intervene to assist in providing services for their out-of-control youth. In both CPS, Child Protective Services, and Youth Justice, there's a level of care continuum. It's preferable to have them at home with a parent or guardian. And then we go up the continuum, if they need out-of-home placement, we're checking with relatives, foster care, treatment foster care, places, group homes, residential, and corrections is only used for those criminally active kids that can't be safely held in the community. So on this slide, we took a snapshot of 2011, 2017, and 2020, showing the number of kids that we had placed in out-of-home care for that calendar year. We had a huge jump in 2020, as you can see there, really needing to utilize those higher level of cares, the group home and residential facilities. The types of youth that we see in placement in out-of-home care, as you can see, the number of delinquent youth, the ones that have committed crimes and are under a delinquency order, that number of kids has relatively remained constant, being at 12, 15, and 13. But as you can see, we've had an increase in kids with mental health needs, special needs, absent parents, and the other area that we're seeing a huge jump in is those disrupted guardianships or adoptions. We're also challenged with finding facilities in Wisconsin that are willing to take any of the kids that need out-of-home care, thus making us search out of state for facilities for kids. So in 2020, we had 5 kids in out-of-home or out-of-state placements. Currently, we have 3. We have 2 going, so we'll be at 5 again. It's a statewide issue. The departments at the state level are well aware of this and trying to work on it.
And part of the problem is statute doesn't allow for some of the security features that are required to house some of these kids. Like right now, we have 3 kids in out-of-state placement. We have 2 on deck. We've got 1 person in Detroit, 1 in Nebraska, 1 in Idaho, and we've got 2 right now. 1 will be going to Nebraska, and the other individual will be going to Tennessee. And these workers spend sometimes weeks trying to find placements for these kids. They do a lot of work. They do a lot of legwork trying to find placements that will accept these kids. In fact, the one that is going to be going, he's been in 2 or 3 placements. The last place he ran from, and when staff went to retrieve him, he assaulted them with a stick. So now this individual is going to be, they have the violence, and that's what we're seeing sometimes. These kids with the developmental disabilities, they're mentally ill, they've got the trauma. And like I've said this before, these aren't kids that are 5 foot tall. They all seem to be 6'2" plus, girls and boys. So they're our challenge as well.
And I just wanted to point out here, this number's increased since I put the slide together, but staff work really, really hard on keeping kids in the community with their parents. We have, people that come and say, I'm done with my kid, I don't want them anymore. And youth justice gets involved. We try to work with them through voluntary services. But if youth justice gets involved, then we're really requiring those parents to engage in services and trying to maintain those kids in the community. And this slide just shows you the average monthly cost of each of those higher level of care. The thing I want to point out here in corrections, we haven't used Lincoln Hills or Copper Lake since 2012 when the 180 program opened up in Eau Claire. We're able to keep our kids local. They're able to get all the services that they need and able to earn time out of the facility and helps them better integrate back home. And as you can see, it's a pretty good bargain. So that's something we don't ever want to see go away at any level. And I think that's all. Any questions for me?
As my Health and Human Services Board knows, the budget was recommended this year was to do away with the 180 program. So the Human Services Association, WICSA, Wisconsin County Human Services Association, we pushed back really hard. We've been advocating with our legislators, and it looks like a lot of those changes that they wanted to implement are going to be put on hold. Because if that goes away, we don't have tools. We don't have anything. And they do want to close Lincoln Hills, but there needs to be more pieces in place to be able to serve kids before they pull the plug on the 180 program.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. So in regards to Child Protective Services, Wisconsin statutes chapter 48 is what governs our work. The Children's Code is in regards to protecting children and unborn children. And the purpose is to preserve the unity of the family and strengthening families, as well as assisting parents in changing circumstances in the home which might harm the child. So in essence, we want to keep the kids in the home whenever it is safely possible. You'll see the different statutes: sexual abuse, neglect, emotional damage, and abuse. Children are taken into custody under 48.13, and they become children in need of protection and services. Those are CHIPS petitions. And then again, there's different subsections: a child without a parent or guardian, or one who's been abandoned, a child who's been a victim of abuse, which is physical abuse. Subsection 4 is when a parent or guardian signs the petition requesting the jurisdiction. 48.1310 is the statute that we typically take children under, and that is because of neglect. So a lot of that is drug abuse, lack of supervision, those areas. And then 48.1311 is suffering emotional damage. That is one, typically, I've had one in my time here, but typically not one that we see. I have to typically have a doctor saying that something that the parent's doing is causing that child emotional damage. So in regards to foster care and treatment foster care rates, you'll see the 2015 through the 2020, the total budget, as well as the CHIPS petition. So we really heightened in 2016 and then lowered a little bit. And you'll see from 2019 to 2020, we upped a little bit, but lowered our kids in out-of-home care. I would put that into, we have a grant in home safety services where we try to keep children in the home without filing the CHIPS petition. So if a parent is willing to work with us voluntarily for up to 4 months, we have services to offer in the home where we don't need to file the CHIPS petition. But that is if they're voluntarily working with us and cooperative. You'll see the average cost for a child in foster care from 2015 to 2016. Again, 2020 was an odd year. You'll look at that, and that's the lowest it's been since 2016. I would attribute that to many children who we are trying to keep with kinship families. So any relatives that they have, that payment is lower, and just trying to justify, not spending too much money. So we're trying. And then the foster care and treatment foster care payments. So you will see that bar graph and how much we are spending there. The treatment foster care was very high in 2017 and 2018, and then lowered in the 2019 and 2020. That's it for me. Any questions? Paul's going to wrap it up.
Right?
Yep, right button.
Okay, got it. All right, just a few more, some more details here, and then I'll go with a summary sheet showing how much is this all costing us. This one here, foster care and youth payments, placements. What's interesting here, I think, the dark bars are children in a foster home, and the orange bars are these residential group home secure detention type placements. So you can see kind of 17, 18, I think, was when we were kind of the meth was peaking, or maybe I don't know if it's done peaking, but kind of at that meth peak, the dark, the foster home bars are high, and relatively the orange bars are lower. And then the last couple of years, like Kyra was saying, 1920, those orange bars are those high dollar youth placements in the group homes and residential facilities and all. So that's kind of how that has swung over time. Here's a look that goes way back to 2009. Children's costs relative to budget. And as you can see in the right-hand column, we were under budget from 09 through 16, and then now over budget the last 4 years. The same information, just in a picture. That's what it looks like. Budget is the dark line. The orange, it's good when it's below that line. It's bad when it's above it. So we're now above the line. That's bad. And then finally, here's our surplus or loss in human services. What a surplus in human services is that tax money was not spent. Our tax levy that was allocated to the department in the budget process was not spent. It stayed with the Treasury. When you think about our spending in human services, we really have three sources of money. We have Medicaid billings, and by definition, when we bill Medicaid, we've already done the service, so it's reimbursing some or all of our cost. So any Medicaid money is being spent as we do our business. The next source is grants. We receive grants to do specific things. We have some general purpose grants, a big one each from Department of Human Services and Department of Children and Family that we can use for almost anything. We use that grant money second. And then the last thing we spend is our tax levy that we were budgeted. So to the extent that we don't spend everything, we have a surplus. So that's what that means. So as you can see, and over this time period, I'll also mention we had an approximate $1 million fund balance in the event we'd be in this situation where we are in now. So from 2012 through 2017, we had a surplus each year. So that was money that remained with the treasurer that was budgeted in human services but was not spent. In 2018, it turned against us. We overspent by almost $500,000. So that came out of our $1 million fund balance. In 2019, another $500,000 out of our fund balance. 2020, $246,000, and that was, and then at the very bottom there, just in the footnote, the county, as part of the book close process, gave us a $250,000 credit in human services to close our books in balance. But there, so the $1 million fund balance is gone, and now $250,000 in levy was spent in 2020. And there's the same exact information in a picture. That'll be the last thing you see. The only caution there is it looks like we're kind of on an upward trend here in the final year. 2020 was a very extraordinary year, as you know, and that's relative to budget. We received an increase for the first time since I've been here in probably about 10 years, which even precedes my time, but we received an increase in our Department and Children and Families allocation. About $250,000 went in 2020 that wasn't budgeted. We received over $100,000, about $150,000 from the CARES Act, which was COVID relief that President Trump signed in 2020. So that was a one-time event. And we also saved quite a bit of money, not hundreds of thousands, but tens of thousands, and saved travel and things that we couldn't do due to COVID. So if it wasn't for this 2020 year, we wouldn't be on that upward peak at the end there. We would have been straight across really in 2018, 2019, and 2020. So that's kind of where all this, we all told you about children and adults and IMDs and everything else, but the cumulative impact is there. Any questions on that? Thank you.
And just to wrap up, what has been the driver of all this? This has been methamphetamine for the most part. For our foster care, in February alone, we had, or was it March, we had Winnebago cost of $140,000. Our budget is $330,000 for Winnebago. Tom indicated that 80% of those cases were methamphetamine related. So these were individuals that could not be maintained in the local hospital. They ended up having to go to Winnebago. So this is what's really hammering us right now at this point. Our budget is lean as can be. When we look at fat, Paul and I look at trimming fat from our budget, we have no services, we're salaries, and we're benefits. That's basically our department. Good thing we have CCS. CCS is a program that allows us to pay for those services that are Medicaid funded. But we're not just sitting around wringing our hands saying, woe is me, what are we going to do? The rest of the state, everybody's experiencing this. But there are some things that we can control. Like when we're looking at Winnebago, we have different doctors that are coming in there, locums. Doctors, temporary doctors coming through. It's supposed to be a short-term acute facility. And all of a sudden, they're keeping people for 3 weeks and saying, well, we're doing medication changes. We're going to probably have them for another couple of weeks. Tom's pushing back. He calls the admission, the director of civil admissions and saying, we've got a lower level of care. We don't need to be paying $1,350 a day for this to be occurring. We're pushing back on those issues. Kyra is challenging parents who come in. Sometimes it's just teenagers being teenagers that parents want their kids out of the home and placed. So they're pushing back. They got a tough job, and they do a good job on that. CPS, right now, they're doing everything they can to maintain kids in the home. DCF, Department of Children and Families, is starting a statewide push to try and maintain children in the homes as much as possible with preventative services. We're trying to work with other agencies, private agencies here looking forward on things that we can do to get kids out of residential a little quicker and maybe even prevent them from going back in. So there's things that we're trying to do at this point. We're letting legislators know. And again, the last meeting we had with the directors, there was 3 items on our agenda with the Department of Children and Family Secretary. The first one was out-of-home placements for these children. That's what we talked about the entire hour. We need assistance. We need help from the state. And these are all mandated services that we are told by the state counties need to provide. They need to start pulling up some more cash as well and start getting with CPS. We're overmatching 1,200% at this point. When this all started, counties were required to match at 30%. We're matching at 1,200% for CPS, for Child Protective Services. So, like I said, we're not just sitting around wringing our hands saying, woe is me. We're doing what we can. We're trying to control what we control. And I think we got a really good team that's doing what they can. So, yes.
When children are placed in out-of-home care, are the parents being assessed child support?
Yes. And we're also looking at we're looking at our consumer financial services as well. For individuals when they're placed in Winnebago, we're looking at recouping because we're not supposed to be paying insurance copays. So what happens is that when somebody's placed in Winnebago, there's a line item in our budget that it's just automatically withdrawn. So what we're doing now is we're ensuring that we're getting hold of consumers. Somebody could have a $5,000 copay. That's not the county's responsibility. And if we have to do tax intercepts for the next 10 years, granted, some individuals we won't get anything from. A lot of these folks get, the old saying, you can't get blood from a turnip. But there are individuals that we can recoup, people that are in placement. We're adults. We're getting their SSI that will help fund that placement as well. When parents of adopted children, their special needs adoption payments, we get those payments to assist in those. But when you're looking at $26,000 a month for a placement in Illinois, that's falls a little short. Any other questions? Well, thanks a lot for your attention. I know it was a lot of information, and if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out, any one of us.
I want to thank you and your staff for the fine job that you've done in this very challenging year, and thank you for a good report.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, County Administrator review and update doing COVID-19 and then jumping into the capital improvement plan.
So I'll go with my COVID update. There's some things that have changed since the slide has gone out. It's the ADRC June 7th. Obviously, they're open. That was really a statewide effort to try and coordinate all that. Public health is open and available currently. It's not by appointment only anymore. Masks are no longer required in the courtrooms. That changed since we put this out. We are currently evaluating the policies that we developed during this time. We've really gone back to our normal policies. Where I can't think of anything that's different at the top of my head. The big thing that definitely happened during COVID, obviously, was people working from home. So we always had a telecommuting policy, but that was a policy that they had a schedule, they had forms to fill out and that type of thing. we really, during this time period, if people had to work from home, they had to work from home, and we, just worked with them. But starting July 1st, if they're going to work from home on the telecommuting policy, they have to start going through that process. So that's really probably the biggest change. Even though we had that, people are much easier or used to it. One of the things we did during COVID is everybody got laptops, so obviously that makes it more available to be able to work from home. But the thing I've been really emphasizing is that our customer service can't change, that people should not know if we're working in the office or out of the office. Customer service is number one. We put that out to the department heads. I put out things for expectations for that. But really, if you hear anything, please contact us, because you guys are out in the community and you hear things. And we really want this to work for everybody. And if we don't know if there's any concerns or anything like that, we can't address them. But I mean, I think our employees are highly motivated, obviously. They like working from home. So we'll do everything we can, but customer service has to be number one. And then the next bullet point there, working through that with public health on the emergency order. Emergency order and the procedures they've come up with, we shared with you a few times. It's a very high standard to get to where they would consider that there isn't an emergency order needed anymore. Obviously, the board can make their own decisions, but I'd like to continue to stay with this, because I think if we get to this point, we're not going back and forth. And that was really the concern. We initially put this in place for a few reasons. One is we could utilize funds. That was a big push. We had emergency PPE that we could utilize if we did that. And then obviously the flexibility for the chair and myself to, things were changing by the minute, obviously, back then, to be able to do that. So I think once they get to their criteria, I don't think anybody would argue that we're past it. And then they would just treat everything, a case, just like it's a normal case. So I think we're pretty much not utilizing any of that currently. So it's not a operational issue or anything that we're dealing with our customers. I think that's gone well. Obviously, the American Rescue Plan Act has been all over the place. And I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing from me that, there it is, but we don't know what it is. So really the biggest change has been on number C, the most communication we've been having. And it talks about general revenue. So there is criteria that you use your previous 3 years, years 17, 18, and 19. And if there's a drop in revenue, general revenue, and I just want to give a visual on what some of this stuff looks like in our world. So this is the interim plan. It's 150 pages. This is the definition of general revenue. It's 61 pages. So working through that and coming up with a consensus on what that exactly means takes some time. And I know it's frustrating to you. It's extremely frustrating to me. But we are working through that. We are working with WCA and NACO to come up with one plan as far as what we're going to consider general revenue, and have everybody fill out the same worksheets, and the whole state's basically going off the same criteria, which I think obviously helps, by numbers for one thing, but it also helps everybody being on the same page and being fair. The other thing, just with the revenue, it's your average. So you average the 3 years, you come up, let's say you increased by 3% each year. You would be able, if you didn't increase by 3%, you would be able to use those funds that are available for government services. Again, a definition, and people are arguing what is government services, so we will work through that also. But that really opens up the ability to use these funds. Government services is a pretty broad statement, obviously, so we'll see what that looks like. If we're under 4.1%, we automatically get to go to 4.1%. So if we average those 3 years, and then in 2020, we only went up 2%, we actually get to utilize that funds for 4.1%. So we'll see what that looks like, and we get to do that for 3 consecutive years, and it's cumulative, so it grows on each other. So it's 4.1, 4.1, 4.1. So we're just, really waiting to see what those numbers look like at the end. As you can see, we did receive our first half of the money, the $6.279 million. So that's in our bank account, and again, we're waiting on kind of working that through. I'm going to present to the executive committee and then the county board, working with the chair on criterias for where you guys want to spend the money and then a process of spending that money. I'm not, I know there's some communities that really kind of push this and move fast on this, but I'm not comfortable because I can't say for certain that something's eligible, and if it's not eligible and we do it, we got to pay it back. And that's a big concern. There is some broadband money becoming available through the state that we can leverage with our broadband money. But the application date for that is July 27th. So that's moving pretty darn quick to try and get things on board. So that's probably the area that most people are looking at. And there's, again, I talked about this in the past, but there's criteria in there that are pretty tough to meet, but we'll continue to work on that. And then the COVID relief funding, we talked about this every 2 months when I bring this. You can still see we have about $579,000 that's available. We just got another grant that Rose Byer, our JCC, put out to get some additional funding. So we just received that. I think that was like $148,000. Is that right? 148. So there still is funds available for that. And then the next one is the sales tax. Again, we were really concerned about sales tax. As you can see, it went well last year. We're up 2.03%. We're currently up. We just got our numbers after this came out, and our February numbers were over 700,000. So we don't know exactly what happened with that. We figure either it's stimulus money or Mr. Menard bought a few planes, and that's a large number for sales tax. So we'll see what next month looks like. As I reported in the past, sometimes these revenues kind of fall like your checks, where you get, it's 12 months, but you get 26 checks, so you get 3 in 2 months. So we'll see if it falls off or not. But so far, so good. It's it's gone really well. So any questions?
Mr. Hauser.
Is sales tax considered general revenue? Is that in the same pot?
That's a good question. I don't know. We don't have that definition yet, I guess. I don't know that. Move on to the next one?
Move right on, yeah.
All right. So we'll talk about the CIP. Report. And then, obviously, I've done this a couple years now, and this report, if there's any changes in the resolutions that come after this report, we'll just update the report. So this is the report, and this is what I'm submitting, but you don't have to take any actions on the report. But if you do take actions on the resolutions, then we change the report accordingly. So in the agenda for the 2026 plan, I'll explain the changes that went from the committee to what I have in the recommendations here. And remember, you're only approving the projects for 2022 budget. Projects from 2023 to 2026 are placeholders. They're a way for us to look in the future and plan ahead. We can definitely talk about any of those if you want, but you're really working on the 2022 budget. So after I'm done reviewing the plan, we'll present the resolutions. And if there's anything you guys want to talk about, obviously we can during this plan. But so the first change, and really a big part of the 2022 budget, it really affects two areas. The two areas are highway and human services. As you know, we just had this presentation on human services, and there's been a big uptick in cost. And one of my goals from the executive committee was to look for sustainability for highway, and another more recent goal was including sustainability for human services. So I tried to address some of that in this budget. So the county, as you just heard, went through $1 million fund balance, and we had to move on another $250,000 into health and human services to cover the cost. So incorporating the CIP is my recommendation to transfer $300,000 of sales tax into the highway department for highway, roads, and bridges, and then transfer out $200,000 in tax levy to human services. Sales tax cannot be used for operational expenditures, so we can't use sales tax to fund health and human services, but it can be used for capital improvement. and that's what this would do. So the $200,000 in levy will assist DHS with children and adult out-of-home placements and emergency detention costs. After this transfer are completed, the Highway Department would receive a net increase of $100,000, and the Highway and Bridge and Human Services would receive $200,000 in tax levy. So the way you'd see this is in the detail, the changes for the 2022 under Highway and Bridges. It's project 1 of 4, if you can see that. The sales tax amount was originally $1.3 million, and now it's $1.6 million. The $200,000 of tax levy would show up in Human Services operation budget as an increase, and then you'd see a decrease in the highway operation budget of levy for $200,000. So that'd be the exchange. Any questions on that? I know that's a big deal, and it's a big part of the budget. So I really want you guys to understand this.
Go ahead, Supervisor Steele.
Yeah, I thought about it, and I think by doing this, we're circumventing the ordinance for the sales tax. Sales tax is only supposed to be used for CIP and pay off debt. That's it. Now, if we take this $300,000 in sales tax money and drop it into the Highway Department budget, we're going to reach in and pull out $200,000 out of that $300,000 and name it levy money. That's circumventing our ordinance. That's just laundering money and chasing it, and that's not right.
Want me to address that?
Yes.
So our ordinance allows us, so there's already 1.3 million going into highway for sales tax money. So we're already utilizing that. Our ordinance allows us to use that for CIP, and those are CIP qualified expenditures. The 200,000 coming out is not sales tax, it's levy. And we cannot use we can't use sales tax to fund the operation cost in Health and Human Services.
I know you can't, but I guess what I'm saying here is, could you take 200,000 out of the highway money right now and give it to Health and Human Services?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Yep. If you wanted to cut their budget by $200,000, you could give it to Health and Human Services. Yep.
But to offset that, the budget, we're going to put $300,000 in and give them $100,000 for taking care of laundering the money.
Well, it's not laundering money. I mean, we're allowed to do this by state statute. We're allowed to do it by our ordinance. And we already do it. So we're not doing anything different than we've done for since the ordinance was put in place. There's absolutely no difference.
Where are we doing it?
We're doing it in highway. We're doing it right now. We were putting 1.3 million in there. Now we're putting 1.6 million.
Yep.
So there's really no difference. It's sales tax money that's going into highway for CIP projects. We're just adding from the 1.3 to the 1.6. That's all we're doing. There's no difference.
I disagree.
Well,
Go ahead, Supervisor Thornton.
I think everybody completely understands the 1.3, the 1.6, but it certainly doesn't look good. It may be legal, but it certainly doesn't look good that you're going to put 1.3 in their CIP, in their budget under CIP, which is completely legit, but then you're going to take 200,000 out of there and give it back to DHS as an to cover their operating expenses.
Correct. Well, how else would you do it? I mean,
I don't know how else you do it. But our sales tax ordinance, and my other comment or question is, are we exceeding our sales tax expenditures?
Exceeding our, no, this is fundable. Boom.
No, but there doesn't not the sales tax ordinance have limits in it? First of all, you're supposed to use it to offset property tax.
Yeah.
Then you're allowed to use it for CIP projects.
Correct.
However, it has to have a balance. You can't zero it.
Yeah, there's a fund balance in sales tax.
Okay.
In general.
Well,
Yep.
according to your 2022 capital improvement project costs, you are using just over $3 million in sales tax just for the CIPs.
Yep.
How much are we using to offset property tax this year?
It's about 1.5 it comes in at.
So we're using about $1.5 million or $4.5 million of sales tax money thus far. We're using $4.5 million of sales tax money. There's what, we just saw a slide that said there's about $6 million in there.
That's just the yearly, not the fund balance. I could get the fund balance for you, if Lori.
The fund balance as of 12/31/2020 was $10,879,413.59. And you're right, Supervisor Thornton, you're right. You cannot use all of that fund balance to go down to zero. So the problem is you can't use your 2020 revenue because you can only use what you want to make sure to maintain 1 year's of revenue in that account. So if we take out what our 2020 revenues were of $6,237,213, we'll still have a fund balance available of $4,642,200. But remember, we added how we have a part of that money, and part of it is because we always had more revenue that came in than what was budgeted, which is normal. The other thing is if you recall back in November, we transferred that $2.3 million of that bonding that is sitting in that account. You remember from the
Tower project?
But that wasn't sales, that's bonded money or bonding.
Sales tax.
It went back to sales tax though.
Why was it put in sales tax? It didn't come out of sales tax.
Yep. So we moved the bonding money into the highway, and we took the sales tax because it had CIP, and we moved it in there so you guys could decide what to do with it.
Okay, so we're currently at 4.5 million. What are we doing about debt service? Because we can also use it for debt service.
And we're fine. Our debt service is $1.8 million. So we'll be fine.
So 1.8 on top of 4.4, we're over a pretty hefty number. You're over $6 million.
Yes, but we're still not, you have to remember when I give you that number, we weren't using the 2020 revenues.
Oh, it's still there.
And we're within the acceptable limits of the ordinance.
Yep.
We could give you a report on CIP balance and that if you'd like that at the next meeting. That would help you.
I'm just looking at this number and I know, you know, we've got these other areas that we spend a lot of sales tax dollars on.
Yep. And we looked at all that and did analysis and determined we could do this. Yep.
Okay.
Supervisor Steele.
I guess the way I look at it is this doesn't pass the court of opinion of the public, I'm sure. I'm not only sure, I'm positive. You got to remember way back when, the 5.5% was passed to do what? Actually, to build a jail. And he said it was going to go away when the jail was built. Well, guess what? It's still here. And now we're circumventing the ordinance again. That's not being transparent to the public. I'm sorry.
Just a couple things. It was 0.5%. It wasn't 5.5%. County board passed 0.5% sales tax. And the county board a long time ago decided to keep this ordinance, to keep using the sales tax. So if you want to bring an ordinance forward or a resolution forward removing that sales tax, you're going to have to figure out how to cover a $6.5 million deficit. So you can do that. Like I said, when me and you talked, Supervisor Steele, you can do lots of things. I mean, there's most counties, I don't know if all of them, but most counties allow sales tax to be used as general operating funds. That's where I came from. All the $6.5 million to just be put in as operating funds. You could use it as CIP, you could use it as offset sales tax, you could do, or offset levy, you could do whatever you want. And this board can make that change if you choose to. But we are following the ordinance, we're following state statute, we're not doing anything. Not being transparent would be not telling you. I'm telling you exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. If you want to, we have to fund DHS, right? I mean, we can see the shape we're in. This is putting $200,000 in levy to help that. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to, but you got to find money somewhere to do that. This is my recommendation on how to do that. But whatever you cut from someplace else, you're going to cut a service, you're going to cut something, which you're free to do, and you guys can decide how to do that, but it's very difficult to do because I've done it. But we can talk about it more in the ordinance too, under the resolution too, when we get there. You can make any recommendations or anything. Anything else on that one?
Any other questions?
Okay, I'll keep moving on then. So the next change was under highway, non-highway fleet, project 404 for 2022. And that was to up that from 200,000 to 275,000. Again, we've been running in the red for that for a few years, so we're trying to get out of that hole. Number 3 change would be for LCFM. If you look on there, that's 1 of 6. And originally, this was designated for $100,000 of sales tax. However, this project, and at the time I brought this up at the committee, I didn't know if it fit within our definition, allowable expenditures under sales tax, and it does not. So we worked with Dan, and he felt like he could come up for $59,000 on fund balance to fund that project. The next one, again, is for LCFM under the stewardship fund, project 4 of 6. Original request was for $100,000 for fund balance. However, there was already $85,000 in that fund balance, so the recommendation is to add $15,000 in sales tax for that to get it up to that $100,000, which is typically what they've been using if they utilize it. Sheriff's Field Service body cameras. Originally, the request for this was $250,000. We've been able to work really through the Sheriff's Department and IT Department, kind of double team this, and they found a way to reduce that, working with Spillman, which is the new software system, I guess is probably the best way to say it, in the Sheriff's Department. And we're only going to need $75,000 from sales tax. But after our meeting, I had a meeting with our DOA team where we're just talking through things, and I felt like I need to do more clarification. So when we go through that resolution, I added, as you saw in your packet, a letter, and I'll explain that more at that time. And then the Sheriff's Training Facility, 202, that was originally in 2022. We moved that out to 2023. We worked with the sheriff, met with him, and talked this through. And, one of the big things has been, as we're going into the CIP projects, was facilities and parks and just their workload. So we were able to move that down to 2023 project. And then moving forward, just looking over the plan, facilities and parks, the room 218, we moved that from fund balance to sales tax. We did another analysis on that fund balance, and if we actually, because projects keep on getting put in there, and most of that sales tax that goes towards their fund balance, but if we actually utilized and completed all those projects essentially at one time, which obviously we normally don't do, we'd run out of fund balance. So we had to move some of those projects into sales tax as we move through the years there. And then highway and bridges, non-highway fleet discontinues the same as in 2022. Sheriff's Training Facility went to 2023. And then we just upped the IT replacement end user from $245,000 to $250,000. That was basically for inflation. That's my report.
Any other questions? Okay. We will move on to business items. And I will call on the clerk to read 2021.
Resolution number 2021, resolution to request the Wisconsin Counties Association to address clean water issues as a matter of statewide concern at the 2021 annual conference. Now therefore be it resolved that the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors declares that all citizens of the state of Wisconsin deserve clean drinking water, And be it further resolved that the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors requests that the Wisconsin Counties Association consider adding this issue and declaration to its matters of statewide concern at the 2021 annual meeting. And be it further resolved that upon passage of this resolution, the Chippewa County Clerk will send a copy of this resolution to the Wisconsin Counties Association, to all Wisconsin counties, and to local members of the state legislature, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay. Any questions? No, we will make the motion then, seek a motion to approve Resolution 2021.
I move to approve Resolution 2021.
Supervisor Schmidt, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Supervisor Ives. Any further discussion? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
This resolution came forward. WCA puts out requests every year for counties to put resolutions together to present to them for their annual conference. And they asked, essentially, they want them to be statewide issues. Obviously, this is a statewide issue. I think the chair saw there was a couple resolutions that came through other counties and brought this through the executive committee.
Any questions? We'll call the vote. Hearing none. All those in favor, or do we have to roll call? Oh, that's right.
We have our remotes
We are
again.
back to our remotes.
We're back.
So all those in favor, you would press your yes button. Then when we come to those who are not in favor, it would be the red no button. So at this time, all those in favor, go ahead and log in your vote. Those who did not approve, you also can log in your vote. Right? Okay. All right. The vote is
13 yes.
okay, unanimous. And then clerk will read Resolution 2121.
Resolution number 21-21, resolution to amend the 2021 Highway Department Capital Improvement Plan to authorize the use of sales tax and bonding funds for replacement of pavement on County Highway F. Now therefore be it resolved that Resolution 2120, resolution to authorize funding for Highway Department capital improvement projects as part of the 2021 county budget approved by the county board on June 9th, 2020, and Resolution 37-20, resolution to approve funds for County 8 construction and maintenance during calendar year 2021, approved by the county board on November 5th, 2020, are hereby amended to add 7 miles of pavement replacement on County Highway F to be completed in 2021, and be it further resolved that the 2021 County Highway 00 project be shortened to 1.2 miles of pavement replacement between 160th and 172nd Streets, and that the resulting project savings of $450,000 in bonding funds be used to help fund the pavement replacement project on County Highway F in 2021. And be it further resolved that an additional $1 million of sales tax funds from the county sales tax fund balance be used to complete the County Highway F pavement replacement project in 2021. And be it further resolved that should federal and or state stimulus funding become available for use on this 2021 project, the Highway Department is authorized to use such funds for this project in lieu of county sales tax and bonding funds, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion.
Thanks. Before Brian's actually at the highway conference, but he's going to give a presentation long distance, so this will be interesting. Him and Tracy will work the presentation part. But before he talks about this resolution, I just want to give a reminder to the county board that you guys passed Resolution 3920. That resolution made $2,354,113 of bonding funds go into the highway department, and then you transferred out that same amount of money into the sales tax. So that's kind of what we talked about a little earlier. And then we'd be utilizing $1 million of that for this project, and then Brian will go through and explain where he's getting the rest of the money. Go ahead, Brian, if you can.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me do this remotely. So first of all, this is Highway F from 64 up to Highway M, so it's about 7 miles. Next slide, please, Tracy. There's quite a few reasons for what happened up there this spring. First of all, it's a very busy road. We have almost 1,000 vehicles per day up there. We also believe that heavy loading was a factor. During the seasonal weight limits, we believe there was some heavy loading happening. There was basically no presence this year from state motor carrier enforcement from the state patrol because of a vacancy and the state's hiring freeze statewide. And so there was little or no enforcement happening in the county to prevent overloads this spring. The pavement's getting older. It's about 17 years old, which isn't our oldest pavement in the county by any means, but getting closer to the end of its design life. And also relatively thin road section. We found about 2.6 to 3.3 inches of asphalt and 7.8 to 12.4 inches of gravel base underneath that throughout the stretch. But most of the areas that failed were on the thinner side of the pavement thicknesses. As you'll see in some of the pictures I'm going to show, the gravel sits right on top of a heavy clay. And so in the summer when that material is dry, it's really actually a very good sub-base material. But in the spring, if the pavement is cracked and allows the clay to get wet, it's very susceptible to damages from loading. So basically the progressive deterioration of the pavement allowed more and more water to get into the sub-base. That's what we saw happen this spring. And the other thing, we do have really bad differential settlement at our culverts up there. The pipes are in good shape. They're PVC pipes that last a long time, but they're bedded in sand. And what happens in the spring is that sand doesn't move the same way the clay does, and you get these really bad dips at all the culvert crossings. So we went out there, did some temporary repairs, and cut up the worst frost boils we could, filled them back up with gravel and millings. And so we continue to monitor those patches frequently with the grader and keeping them smoothed out. Currently, the road is closed to through traffic. We have a detour set up on Highway 40. It's posted at Class B, which means it can only be 60% of the legal weight limits for a regular Class A road, unless you have a destination on that road. So if you have a destination right on Highway F, you could haul a legal load to a farm or a business. And we did lower the speed limit to 35 miles an hour. Next slide, please. Here you can see some of the pictures of the damages to the pavement that came up. Right around March 15th, we had multiple vehicles report damage and file claims with the county. Our crews responded right away. You can see that we were filling the areas with a lot of millings and just trying to get traffic back on the road. And our own equipment was actually damaging the pavement further, so we did have to pull off and just try and be more careful. On the right side, you can see a layer of that clay, and that's really just a wet, soft clay that's right underneath the rubber base. Next slide, please. We did have more and more areas continue to break up throughout the spring after the initial repairs were made. Our patches are pretty solid now, much more firm by the end of the spring thaw in mid-April. So the road's pretty solid right now, but it definitely needs to be addressed. Next slide. So there's basically two things that we can do. We can look at just doing short-term repairs, and we actually have that scheduled to start next week. What we'll do is go in and remove the remaining areas where the pavement was destroyed, out some of the soft areas and patch them in with gravel and cover it with an asphalt patch. This doesn't really correct the problem overall, and we're going to see more and more areas come back next spring in different spots. What we're proposing is a pavement replacement. We would go in and dig down towards the top of the culvert pipes and address the differential settlement with some gravel tapers and some geotextile fabric, and then add about 4 inches of gravel to the whole thing, pulverize it, and repave the road. Next slide, please. We estimate $1.45 million to do this. So the option we're bringing forward is the one that's in our control, is the local funding option, and that's to transfer $1 million out of the county sales tax fund. We've already shortened up the paving on Highway 00 to come up with the $450,000 internally at Highway, and so that's in anticipation of this going through. We know what's going to happen with the rescue plan funds, and there's a lot of debate happening now in Washington about a federal transportation stimulus. So the resolution is written in a way that allows us to use stimulus or other type of funds if they become available instead of using the kind of funds. Next slide, please. And the reason I have to be remote tonight, we want to get this to you as soon as possible, and I had a commitment here. So we've gone to Highway Committee, it passed unanimously. Also, last week at that committee, it passed unanimously, and tonight we're with you. If this goes through, we will get started as soon as possible. We have a couple other project commitments, so we'd be looking at getting started a little bit later in June, and it's a 6-week project to do the whole thing start to finish. So that's really what I had for that project. Any questions for me?
Hauser?
00 is the section of 00 that is now currently been blacktopped. How much more would have been done?
1.2.
That project was originally supposed to go, I think, about another 1.5 miles to the east, past to the second corner on 00 where it turns south. That is actually a project we have on our radar if the stimulus funds or the federal funds come through, is continue that all the way through the orchards all the way to K. The whole stretch is getting pretty bad. The part we had in our budget for this year was, if you remember, last year we had to add that. We had some similar failures in the spring out there, and so we had to accelerate that project. So we're kind of chasing our own tail. These projects that just keep coming up that we're not planning on. We're trying to do a better job of analyzing what happened in conditions and get a little bit more proactive in identifying them, but some of that's just really hard to anticipate.
Any other questions? Okay.
Make one comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say this is an emergency. This was not planned. This road just really fell apart, and it's the best way to deal with it is what we've laid out here. Wasn't by choice.
Okay.
What was the heavy duty trucks or whatever that you think are causing this? Was it different traveling routes for businesses, commercial driving?
Brian, can you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I know I personally have seen logging trucks. There is a lumber mill further north on F. I've seen trucks coming up F to go there. Could be ag equipment. You know, anything. It's a pretty light posting, and we put on those roads in the spring because of these conditions that we have under the pavement, where we have these heavy clays around the northern part of the county. We have to post all those roads, and it's really up to the traveling public to honor that when there's no consequences.
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, then I will call the vote, and this will be the last time I tell you how green is yes, and red is no. I think you'll have it down. Okay. Yep.
13 yes.
Okay. Passes unanimously. Then we will move to Resolution 2221. When you are ready.
Resolution number 22-21, resolution to authorize funding of Highway Department capital improvement projects as part of the 2022 Chippewa County budget. Now therefore be it resolved pursuant to Section 2-361A3B of the Code of Ordinances that sum of $1.6 million be transferred from the sales tax fund to be used to fund Highway Department roadway and bridge projects in 2022 as part of the 2022 county budget. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Chippewa County Policy 305, fund balance or non-lapsing account expenditure policy, the county board does hereby authorize the Highway Department to utilize fund balance in the amount of $1,025,000 from the Highway Department Machinery Fund to purchase Highway Department machinery in 2022 as part of the 2022 county budget. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Chippewa County Policy 305, fund balance or non-lapsing account expenditure policy, the county board does hereby authorize the Highway Department to utilize fund balance in the amount of $100,000 from the Highway Department machinery fund balance to be used for the improvement of county highway buildings and grounds projects in 2022 as part of the 2022 county budget. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Chippewa County Policy 305, fund balance or non-lapsing account expenditure policy, the county board does hereby authorize the Highway Department to utilize fund balance in the amounts of $175,000 from the Highway Department Machinery Fund to be used for improvements and security of Highway Department buildings and grounds as part of the 2022 county budget. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Chippewa County Policy 305, fund balance or non-lapsing account expenditure policy, the county board does hereby authorize the Highway Department to utilize fund balance in the amount of $75,000 from the Courthouse Security Fund to be used for the security of Highway Department buildings and grounds in 2022 as part of the 2022 county budget. And be it further resolved pursuant to 2-361A3B of the Code of Ordinances that the sum of $275,000 be transferred from the sales tax fund to be used to fund replacement of vehicles in the county's non-highway fleet in 2022 as part of the 2022 county budget. Forwarded to the county board by the executive.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Yep,
Brian.
Brian's on the, go ahead, Brian.
Basically, the way we do our CIP at Highway is there's 4 projects. There's highways and bridges, there's machinery purchasing, building and grounds, and the non-highway fleet. And so the first project has a lot of different jobs under it. So just a couple of the big jobs that we have coming up in 2022. We have like 4 different design projects shown on there, but then further down the list, we have Highway Double S, which we're doing the first half this year. This will finish the remaining half up to New Auburn from 83rd Street, which is 2 acres supper club. We have a couple of small bridges on here, and also we have the Cobbin Bridge demolition will start next year. So we have $1.6 million of sales tax and $1.3 million bonding to go with the $1.98 million of levy, and then the $3 million of federal aid. The machinery purchasing, we typically average about $1.2 million in machinery revenues, and that's all internally funded by the machinery rates that we charge ourselves and our customers. And so what we're doing here, we're planning $1.025 million for the actual machinery replacements. And then some of that money also needs to go towards buildings and grounds. And so we would have 100,000 going to buildings and grounds just for the general buildings and grounds projects. And then we have our unique project that started this year is our security system. We're doing our security system phase 1 this year, which is in Chippewa. And then our security system phase 2 will be in all the outlying sheds and the gravel pits and the hot mix plant. So that has 75,000 of machinery funds for that and 75,000 of port security funds. And then the last CIP is the vehicle purchasing for the non-highway fleet. And Randy already talked about that's going up to 275,000. Is there any questions?
Why the increase in the non-vehicle fleet?
Did you hear that, Brian? Okay.
Yeah, I did. So that's a non-lapsing fund in our highway operation fund report, and that part of the fund is it's been going further into the red. Our fund for all in the highway department's good, but the non-highway fleet is one thing that's into the red, and that's part of the fund. So we're seeing vehicles cost more, especially the sheriff's vehicles. There's more and more technology and equipment that goes into those, and a lot of time that goes into building each of those. So I think we were at 200,000 for a few years, and that just we're getting behind at that price in order to sustain the fleet.
Supervisor Steele?
A few years ago, we were purchasing Suburbans and Tahoes, and the county board at that time said that didn't want to keep doing that. That isn't happening now, is it?
No, we haven't bought a Suburban, and we haven't bought a Tahoe since I've been here. So definitely, we've gone to more pickups and smaller utility vehicles. It'd be nice to have a Tahoe or a Suburban, but even the state auction price is $50,000, like that, and you can get picked up for $28,000 to $30,000. So it's a no-brainer.
I got another question.
Yes, go ahead.
In sentence 50 up to 53, it's where your county administrator, finance director, administrator put $1,600,000 sales tax funds. Now that's the 300,000 is in that? Okay. Where in this statute does it say that you're going to take 200 out?
It doesn't. It can't, because it's operation. This is the CIP budget. That'd be operational budget. So when the budgets come through the county, go to the committees, go to executive, come here, that's where you would see that change.
Well, you're saying you're putting it in, but not taking it out.
Guess you're going to have to trust me, Buck. I mean, I said it in front of the whole county board. I don't think I'm changing my mind.
Well, I guess what gets me with this whole situation is you were assigned a task of trying to research a way to alleviate the problem. I'm not against taking care of the highway department and the county health. I'm not against that. I'm just against the way, the process to do it. Now, and then when I come to this meeting, I get, this is my recommendation. If you guys want to change it, come up with a plan and tell me. Well, we haven't had the opportunity to sit and look at those books like the finance director and the administrator has for weeks on end. I would think that they would come up with a plan and say if we didn't like this plan, that there might be a twink here or there that they could do to take care of the problem. But I didn't hear that. The only thing I heard was, if you don't want it, I'll cut it out. You guys got to figure out how you want me to fix it. And I don't like that.
Yeah, I get that. And I always bring recommendations or options to the board. I just don't have any. Like I said, like you said, we spend weeks, we spend hours trying to figure this out. If there was another option or there was something else I could recommend, I'd always bring options. I always do. So this is my recommendation. Like I said, if there's something, if you want to cut another service or do something like that, you can do that. That's your prerogative. You can do whatever you want, but this is my recommendation. I don't have other recommendations.
Supervisor Thornton.
Are we finished with our courthouse security plan? That we have $75,000 laying around to give the highway so they can secure their buildings?
Are we done with it? I don't know if we're ever done. Feels like we're never done with it. But there is, yeah. So there's a security plan for highway that was part of that security plan, right? So, you know, that we're implementing that part of the security plan for that.
Oh, it was included in the
Overall
security plan?
That's correct, right, Brian?
Right. Yep. There was definitely some recommendations on securing the highway shops.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we ready then? At this time then, we'll call the vote. Use your buttons. Yep.
11 yes, 2 no.
Okay. 11-2. Motion passes. Resolution 2321. Give you a little time here.
Resolution number 23-21, resolution to authorize the use of sales tax funds and fund balance for facilities and parks capital improvement projects in 2022.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chipman and Hauser. Discussion. Mr. Singer?
I'm going to read it.
She already read it. Or did you?
No.
Oh, you did?
Just
Okay.
read the title.
Just the title.
Wants to move it along.
I thought that was awful short.
Now therefore be resolved that the county board does hereby authorize the transfer of $150,000 from the sales tax fund to the facilities and parks division to be used to complete the reworking of 15 exterior windows located in the old part of the county jail in 2022. And be it further resolved that the county board does hereby authorize the transfer of $450,000 from the sales tax fund to the facilities and parks division to be used to replace existing roofs on the 1992 courthouse in 2022. And be it further resolved that the county board does hereby authorize the transfer of $50,000 from the sales tax fund to the facilities and parks division to be used to complete routine parking lot maintenance at the government center campus in 2022. And be it further resolved that the county board does hereby authorize the facilities and parks division to utilize fund balance pursuant to Chippewa County Policy 305, fund balance or non-lapsing account expenditure policy to address the courthouse paint wall covering Phase 2 project using $170,000 from the courthouse maintenance fund balance in 2022. And be it further resolved that the county board does hereby authorize the facilities and parks division to utilize fund balance pursuant to Chippewa County Policy 305, fund balance or non-lapsing account expenditure policy to purchase a dump truck using $120,000 from the parks fund balance in 2022. And be it further resolved that the funding for these projects be included in the 2022 Chippewa County budget, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay.
All right. I'm pitch hitting for Larry Ritzinger tonight. He is on vacation, so I'll do my best. I'll just go over the 5 projects. First project is reworking 15 exterior windows located in the old part of the county jail. They're 70 plus years old. You can imagine kind of shape they're in. Concerns there, I guess, are security and energy efficiency. The second project is replacing existing roofs, number 3 and 4. I can't tell you which roof those are, unfortunately, but they're at the 29-year life. I do know from my previous experience, if you get to 25, you're doing well. So 29 took good care of that, but again, it's at the end of life. Then the parking lots, this is something I worked with Larry on a few years ago. Instead of taking bits and pieces from our operational budget to put together a little program and use it for sales tax of the $50,000. So he's got a good maintenance program put together. On number 4, as you know, we did floors 1 and 3, redoing wallpaper and paint. Got a lot of compliments, especially when it was first done. And then we'd be looking at doing the lower level and then second floor moving forward. And then the last one is purchase of a dump truck for the Parks Division. Theirs has gone to the end of life also. It's about 26 years old.
The exec committee, I believe those roofs are for this building.
Yeah, I don't remember, unfortunately, sorry.
Yeah, for the court. Memory's good, just short.
Better not.
Questions? Okay, hearing none, then I will call the vote. Yep,
13 yes.
pass unanimously. Okay. We will move on to resolution 2421.
Resolution number 24-21, resolution to authorize the use of sales tax funds and fund balance by the Department of Land Conservation and Forest Management as part of the 2022 Capital Improvement Plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the sum of $59,000 of existing LCFM fund balance be included in the 2022 Capital Improvement Plan as part of the 2022 county budget to be used to update the groundwater quality study of well sampling. And be it further resolved that the sum of $100,000 consisting of approximately $50,000 from sales tax funds and $50,000 from state of Wisconsin grants be included in the 2022 Capital Improvement Plan as part of the 2022 county budget to be used to initiate the Climate Change Flood Control Buffer Initiative. And be it further resolved that the sum of $50,000 of sales tax funds be included in the 2022 Capital Improvement Plan as part of the 2022 county budget to be used to replace 2 county forest dam drop structures. And be it further resolved that the total sum of $100,000, $85,000 of county stewardship fund balance and $15,000 of sales tax funds be included in the 2022 Capital Improvement Plan as part of the 2022 county budget to be used to permanently preserve select working lands in areas of high environmental and public value in 2022, pursuant to the Chippewa County Stewardship Fund Policy and Procedures for Program Administration as previously adopted through Resolution number 89-99. And be it further resolved that the sum of $300,000 consisting of approximately $150,000 from state of Wisconsin grants and $150,000 from the Forest and Trails Special Conservation Fund balance be included in the 2022 Capital Improvement Plan as part of the 2022 county budget to be used to acquire county forest land subject to county board approval. And be it further resolved that the sum of $120,000 be applied from the county snowmobile state fund to be included in the 2022 Capital Improvement Plan as part of the 2022 county budget to be used for construction of snowmobile bridges, if grant funding is approved by the Department of Natural Resources, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay. Mr. Masterpole. Oh, we need a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Good evening. Mr. Chair, I think the simplest way for me to introduce this is that we have 2 environmental monitoring and management projects, 2 physical infrastructure projects, and 2 land acquisition or land conservation projects. The environmental monitoring project would be an allocation to do more groundwater sampling. Our last major groundwater sampling project was in 2016, and the board and the committee have shown an interest in doing some special groundwater studies. So we thought we would move that forward with this capital improvement cycle. The second project that's environmental in nature is we're asking for $50,000 in sales tax to try to secure some matching grants to be used for mitigating climate change impacts. We're starting to see more intensive rainstorms that are creating more runoff that are harming our public infrastructure. And with the recognition of climate change, we're anticipating a lot more grants becoming available in the future for this type of thing, and want to see if we can secure a grant to match sales tax money. The physical infrastructure projects, we manage 18 impoundments in the county forest, and one of the drop structures that are used for an outlet need to be replaced. We're looking for sales tax money for that. We're asking for authorization to pass through $120,000 in state grants to replace some snowmobile bridges that the Snowmobile Council will advise us of. And then finally, we're seeking, as Randy noted, $15,000 in sales tax to bring our account balance for the county stewardship fund up to $100,000. We use that money for matching grants from other municipalities and nonprofits who come to us with matching grant funds to secure either conservation easements or land for public use. And then finally, we're seeking authorization for up to $300,000 from fund balance and grants in the event that the committee chooses to seek to acquire any land for the county forest.
Okay. Any questions? Supervisor Ives? Can't see you, but.
Oh, I just had a clarification on the resolution here on line 130. You know, even when the clerk read it, it says the sum, or well, 129 to 130, the total sum of $100,000, $85,000 of county stewardship funds. They're both from county stewardship funds. It just I don't know, it reads funny to me. Is there something missing?
Yeah, I'll ask Lori to help out if necessary. The county stewardship fund has a balance right now of $85,000 in it. And we've always tried to maintain an operating balance of $100,000. So rather than asking for $100,000, we were just advised to ask for the 15.
We'll work on that wording. I agree.
Okay, thanks.
That could have been worded better.
Okay. That answer your question?
Yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, then we will go to the little
Don't touch your buttons yet. You push your buttons, I can't push mine.
cleared.
I'm
Okay.
good. Now you're good.
Trying to move.
I know.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the vote then at this time.
You're still voting, Chair. Oh, sorry.
What?
It's fine.
Never mind.
Did I do it too quick?
No, 13, yes.
Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Resolution 2521.
Resolution number 25-21, resolution to authorize the use of sales tax revenue funds by the sheriff's office for the purchase of body cameras as part of the 2022 capital improvement plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the sum of $75,000 be transferred from the sales tax relief fund to the sheriff's office equipment fund to be used to purchase body cameras as part of the 2022 Chippewa County capital improvement plan. And be it further resolved that the sheriff and IT director are hereby authorized to enter into any agreements subject to approval as to form and legal sufficiency by Corporation Counsel, and take any other actions as may be necessary to procure the body cameras and to expend funds in furtherance thereof. Ordered the County Board by the Executive Committee.
Do you hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Let me start?
Yep.
I'll start before the sheriff comes out, but I just wanted to make sure, I talked about this a little bit, that originally this came in at $250,000 when it came through the committee. But after that, we discovered that our IT department and a member of the sheriff's department, talking with Spillman, was able to get a much better cost overall. But when I presented it to the executive committee, I only talked about the $75,000 in sales tax, which is what the CIP is. But I didn't want anybody to think that that was just the overall cost, which I think, as I presented, that's kind of how it came across. So I sent this clarifying letter out, and we'll make this part of the record. That was one of the reasons to do it. But as you see, the $75,000 for CIP does cover what we can use for sales tax for this purpose. But there will be $102,900 for operation expenses for over a 5-year period, which comes up to that $20,600. When they originally did Spielman, they had some modules that they thought they were going to use. They call them modules. I don't know why, but that's what they call them. They're not going to utilize some of them. And with those modules are ongoing operation maintenance agreements. And so we'll be able to use the maintenance funding for this purpose instead of for that purpose. So their operation budget should be fine too. I just want to make sure that we're clear. There's any questions for me before the sheriff comes up?
Right.
Okay, good evening. I'll make this short and sweet so we get back out into the humidity and heat. And again, this was presented by myself back in 2017 as a priority. The cost of the project was then entertained, and $250,000 was a lot of money to spend in regards to that project. But at that time, back in 2017, that was the going rate for cameras and everything associated with implementing body cameras, dash cameras, and so on and so forth. What we decided to do is to eliminate from this project the dash cameras from the squad cars. And that's kind of the ongoing trend right now with law enforcement, body cameras, eliminating the dash cameras and going that route. Usually where that car goes, the officer goes, and vice versa. So again, we chose not to include dash cams and cut the cost down considerably in regards to the dash cams. So the dash cams would be 32, just like the number of body cams that are needed. If you take a look at the resolution, there's like 9 bullet points there that explain and justify why body cameras are needed, not only by the Sheriff's Department, but law enforcement in general. I think within this last year, you really understand why video has become so important, not only in the law enforcement field, but again, in any situation where there's a major incident. Photographs are kind of going by the wayside. Requests for evidence, requests for documentation, requests for any major incident. The first question that our clerical or the sheriff or administration is asked, do you have video? Do you guys have body cams? And again, unfortunately, until hopefully in 2022, I can eventually say, yes, we do. Attorneys are probably our number one requesters for body cams. And again, that's a situation that will be taken care of with this. This is a project that is well overdue. What happened over the years, there was other projects that I thought were priorities, such as the laundry project, the cameras back in the jail. The list can go on and on and on. But I think today, in today's world out there, especially in the world of law enforcement, body cameras are a necessity. Any questions, comments, concerns? I do want to say thanks to Andy and his crew, along with finance, for assisting us looking into Spillman, which bought out WatchGuard. WatchGuard is probably the company that we are going to be going with. The city police department utilizes WatchGuard, and I think once this goes forward, the rest of the county municipalities will probably join with us in implementing WatchGuard throughout the county. Okay, now if you have any questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Are your officers pretty much behind this as well?
Definitely. And again, this isn't going to happen overnight. There's training. There's policy and procedure. But again, we're pretty fortunate because a lot of policies and procedures are already been implemented. Not that we would steal somebody else's policy or procedure, but why reinvent the wheel when it's already out there? I think our officers are looking forward to it, and I think the public is looking forward to it. So I think it's going to benefit everybody. Allegations, exonerating officers, again, the list goes on and what you can use this footage for. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, then at this time, we'll call the vote. There those votes.
You ready?
Yep.
13 yes.
Okay, resolution passes unanimously. Resolution 2621.
Resolution number 26-21, resolution to authorize the use of sales tax revenue funds for computer equipment replacement as part of the 2022 capital improvement plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the sum of $265,000 be transferred from the sales tax fund to the computer outlay account to be used for computer system equipment replacement in 2022 as part of the 2022 county budget. And be it further resolved that the sum of $80,000 be transferred from the sales tax fund to the computer outlay account to be used for video conference systems replacement in 2022 as part of the 2022 county budget, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Supervisor Ives, is there a second?
I'll second it.
McMinimum, second. Okay. Mr. Bauer.
Good evening. So our CIP projects that we have in front of you are pretty standard projects that we've been bringing in front of you guys since I've been here at the county for the most part. We have a replacement process we go through for all of our equipment. Most computers are 5 years. Servers are another 5 years. Network equipment is usually that 5 to 10, depending on where we are able to purchase in the life cycle. So the first resolution is covering the end user equipment, the laptops and PCs, as well as the servers and network infrastructure. So there's $265,000 that we're requesting for this. $125,000 of that will be the data center equipment, which is those servers, network switches, wireless access points, virtual server infrastructure. $140,000 of that is the end user equipment, which is the laptops, computers, monitors, accessories, projectors, and things like that the end users will use. The second portion of this is the $80,000, and this is for video conferencing equipment. The current equipment that we're using in our courtrooms is end of life here in October, I believe it is, of this year. This equipment is outward facing to the internet because of the equipment that has to connect to it. So if we are no longer able to receive security updates, that equipment very quickly becomes vulnerable and is a opportunity for hackers to attack and try to gain access into our network utilizing some of those vulnerabilities. So We're looking to replace all 3 courtroom units that we have in place today, as well as the one that's used in the jail. These units are used to save a lot of costs on transport of inmates and so forth for the court systems, and have been very valuable through the COVID times as well, so they could continue to hold court proceedings. Are there any questions that anyone has for me on these?
Supervisor Steele.
Is there anything in there to firewall all our computers? Or, I mean, I can't believe the amount of times the computer's been hacked. My personal computer hasn't ever been hacked. Well, once. But I mean, here, it's almost a monthly occurrence. And I'm getting emails from him. Calling me. And
Do not send gift cards.
Yeah.
all these companies contacting us and wanting us to buy this and buy that, and isn't there something you can buy to take care of a lot of that stuff?
So there's a long answer to this. I'll try to keep it as short as we can. Yes, we have a lot of systems in place for helping to secure our network. It's kind of like an onion effect. You have multiple layers, because if you have one layer, they get through that and they're wide open in your system. So we have firewalls. We just did an upgrade with the help of some grant funding that Jackie got through the election process security. So we upgraded our firewall for some next-gen firewall capabilities. We have an email filter, which helps to try to pull out malicious emails. The emails that you're talking about, that you're getting that appear to be coming from the county board chair or the county administrator, they're actually not coming from those people. What they're doing is they're going out and creating Gmail accounts. They go out to the internet, they create their own account, and then they make the name of the account look like people that are in positions of authority. And then they send emails out, and because we're a public entity, a lot of our names and email addresses are listed on our county website. So that is a perfect scenario for these hackers to grab information and generate emails. And instead of embedding viruses and things like that, which our security mechanisms will catch and block, they just make them a plain email. I'm typing you a little letter here saying, hey, I need you to do me a favor. And so they're looking for a response. And if people, which is, there's a statistic that we let all new employees know as we go through our security training with them, that I believe last year it was 24% of all security incidents were because of human error. People being very busy, working very quickly, trying to get things done, that they don't take the time to look at where the actual email was coming from. They see the name and, okay, yep, I'm going to respond. They don't see that it's from countychair24@gmail.com. So we're doing a lot to educate our employees when they're coming on board. That is a big piece of it now that we're going through a security training with them. And we continue to improve security all the time, but it's a constant battle. I mean, it's from the time I started here till now, it has just exponentially gotten tougher and tougher to block these things. So, so the good thing is the stuff you're getting isn't that we're infected. It's people trying to mimic that, who they are, get you guys to fall for it and send money and get gift cards for them and things like that. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Hearing none, then I will call the vote. Yep.
13 yes.
Okay. Resolution 2721.
Resolution number 27-21, resolution to approve the use of sales tax funds for the annual contribution to the Chippewa Valley Regional Airport to be used for airport capital projects and/or airport debt service as part of the 2022 Chippewa County budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the sum of $131,574 be transferred from the sales tax property tax relief fund to the airport budget in the general fund to pay Chippewa County's 2022 airport agreement contribution to be used for capital projects and debt service as enumerated in the airport budget, all as part of the recommended 2022 Chippewa County budget forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
by Sal, and there's second.
Second.
Supervisor Thornton. Mr. Schultz.
This is a resolution that comes forward every year. We have a 5-year agreement, which was in your packet with the airport. It ends in 2023. The amount for 2023 is $132,890, and we'll have to redo that contract. They can only use the funds for debt service or capital improvement projects.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Hearing none, we will then call the vote. Passed unanimously. Resolution 2821.
Resolution number 28-21, resolution to authorize the use of sales tax funds to pay debt service liabilities as part of the 2022 Chippewa County budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the sum of $940,900 be transferred from the sales tax property tax relief fund to the debt service fund for the 2018 capital improvement project bonds for payments on the principal and interest on the 2018 capital improvement radio tower project, transportation bonds, and refunding the previous bonding to be included in the 2022 Chippewa County budget. And be it further resolved that the sum of $912,900 be transferred from the sales tax property tax relief fund to the debt service fund for the 2020 capital improvement project bonds for payments on the principal and interest on the transportation bonds to be included in the 2022 Chippewa County budget, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll move. Second.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor Schmidt. Okay, Randy.
Again, this resolution is something we do every year. It's for debt service or bonding, and we're again trying to keep that at about the 1.8 million. That's the plan moving forward.
Any questions? Okay, we will call the vote.
Yes.
Passed unanimously. Made it. Okay, we'll then move on to agenda items for future consideration.
I actually have one, Chair.
So what?
I actually have one for that.
Yeah.
For future. I was contacted, obviously we can't have a conversation about this, but I wanted you to know that it possibly could be on the next county board agenda. Lynn Nelson from the regional planning contacted me about those micro grants that you guys approved a few months ago. Well, they're getting more applications than what they anticipated. So they reached out to DOA to see if they could get more funding. It sounds like there is more funding available, but obviously they're always, as always, on a tight deadline. So the chair actually is going to put out a letter to the county board explaining everything and seeing if you're in favor of him, because he can sign it and we're not required to do another resolution. But obviously, if you guys want another resolution, it would come through executive and come to the county board. But that wouldn't be till July, and obviously that's going to delay the process. But so I just wanted to give you a heads up on that and let you know it could be on the next agenda, depending on what you decide.
What was there? Does she know how much additional funding?
I can't talk about it. He'll explain it in the letter. If that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So unless I hear an objection, the clerk and I would have to sign it to send it through. So to expedite it. Any other agenda items for future? Yes.
Again, I'd like to respectfully request that we, either on the executive committee or the Land and Conservation Committee as a business item, have an updated stormwater contract with updated current fees for consideration. You heard from Dave Staber today. We also heard from him and several other people from the townships at our last meeting. And I do believe that there is a 10-year plan that would need to be updated if we continue to not move forward with an updated stormwater contract.
The item that you asked for, again, to be put on the agenda was put on the land conservation agenda.
Not as a business item.
At this point in time, the reason it's not a business item is because we don't have the data for that. But we can't discuss, we can't discuss it. But I just want to know that it was put on the agenda.
I'm asking
I
to be a
anticipate
business item.
seeing more. Any other agenda items? Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Voice, I guess we do. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.